Writing the personal statement can be extremely daunting. It's a lot to fit into 4,000 characters, and it's the first time that admissions tutors will be seeing you as a person. Hi everyone, my name is William and I'm a medical student from Imperial College London. Today, we're going to be giving you our top 12 tips to help you write your personal statement. Writing the personal statement can be extremely challenging, given how much emphasis medical schools can place on it. But fear not, we've spoken to our top tutors here at the Aspiring Medics, who all come from the UK's top medical schools. Before we get into it, please remember to hit that subscribe button to check out some of the great content to come from the Aspiring Medics. So let's get into it.
So the first tip we have for our personal statement video is about staying on message. So what do I mean by staying on message? Well, when you're writing your personal statement, you're not going to include all sorts of things. You want to stay relatively focused to sort of the career you're going into, which for us is medicine. And it's things like you want to show motivation to study medicine, you know, the ability to reflect on your own work, the ability to know your strengths and weaknesses, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, you need to stay on message because you only have around 4,000 characters for your personal statement. I want to study medicine, I have the qualities to study medicine, I'm going to show you in this personal statement, and I'm going to stay on message. And that's essentially what you want to get across in your personal statement.
Medicine personal statements are famous for their cliches. I have a real curiosity towards medicine. I've wanted to be a doctor since I was 2 years old. I just want to help people. These are all sentences that every admissions tutor has heard 100 times. And they're not necessarily bad things to include in your text, but they're not also going to add a huge degree of originality or engagement to your piece. And this also becomes a problem when we're writing the opening of our personal statement, because you're trying to answer a generic question, which is, why do I want to do medicine? And often people do have the same reasons for doing medicine, so how do we keep it original? Well, it's important to, of course, still tell the truth about why you want to do medicine, but try and phrase it in a way that others might not have, and convey it using ideas and experiences that others won't have had. It's also very important to avoid specific cliched words and phrases which are overused. These tend to be words such as passion or curiosity, but if we use them too many times, the text becomes saturated and the words lose their meaning. So try and switch up your language in a natural sounding way to keep it original as well.
As our way of saying thank you, we're giving you £10 off our personal statement review service. Discount code is YouTube10 and link is in the description below. Alright, back to the video.
The good way to sort of stay on message is to think like an admissions tutor. So my advice is go and look at some of the qualities that are required, you know, to be a doctor. Think when you're writing your experiences in your personal statement, does this relate to any of these qualities? Is my admissions tutor going to look at this and be like, okay, he's showing X, Y, and Z, or are they going to look at this and be like, what is he or she showing?
When you're talking about something that happened during your work experience in your personal statement, it's really good to follow the STARR technique as opposed to just describing a situation. If you do just describe a situation, all you're demonstrating is that you have recall, which doesn't really shine well on you as someone applying to medical school. You want to demonstrate what you learnt, what you did, and what you've just reflected on. And so the STARR technique really brings us all together in a nice way. It stands for situation, task, action, results, and reflection. If you do all of these in roughly that order, you can really put together some great paragraphs and sentences in your personal statement to show not only what happened, but what you thought, what you did, what you brought to the table, and then what you learnt afterwards, and how you think this can apply to you and how it makes you a better candidate for that space at medical school.
One of my top tips to write a good personal statement is to ensure that you write genuine reflections in it. Remember that the personal statement is not a list of your achievements, it's not a brag sheet. Instead, it's an opportunity to show admissions tutors that you've had a variety of experiences that are very diverse and that you've reflected on them, gained skills from them, and you want to show admissions tutors that you have all of the skills required to be a doctor. And the only way to do this is to have genuine reflections. But what does reflection entail? When reflecting on any experience, ask yourself these questions. What went well? What are my key learning points from this experience? What didn't go so well? And how can I improve upon it? If I had this experience again, or if I had to do this task again, what would I do differently and what would I do the same? It's also really important to be very genuine and truthful about what you write in your personal statement. And this is because your personal statement is fair game for any questions at your interview. So interviewers can ask questions on all of your experiences mentioned in the personal statement. So it's really important to be truthful about these experiences and what you've learned from them, because in an interview, face-to-face, interviewers will know if you're lying about something. So make sure to have truthful and genuine reflections in your personal statement.
Okay, so my top tip is to use the medicine selection criteria as a mark scheme, literally to tick yourself off for each and every single point to make sure you've covered everything. So you can search it for individual universities. So for example, you can search Oxford Medicine Selection Criteria, and what you'll note there is actually 8 out of the 11 criteria there are actually personal characteristics. If you can't find it specifically for your university, you can look for the generic one, and that's the Medical Schools Council values and skills. And again, you'll find that document online. We'll link it in the description that you can have a look at. If you haven't already checked out our NHS core values video, then what have you been doing? Have a look at it. It's really, really useful. It gives you some really fundamental values that ultimately you'll need to understand, because the NHS is where you're going to be working for the rest of your life. I'd also recommend checking out our experience bank. The link is in the description, and it contains all of the medical school values as well as the STARR technique that you can utilize for each and every single one of those values. It's incredibly valuable and something that's completely free, so be sure to check it out.
Another really useful tip for your personal statement is to remember quality over quantity. Remember that you only have 4,000 characters to express yourself. And like I mentioned before, this is not a brag sheet. The personal statement is the first time that admissions tutors actually get to know who you are as a person. So use those limited 4,000 characters to express who you are as a person. Instead of going on listing your 20 different work experience opportunities, it's a much better use of characters to talk about what you've actually learned from that experience. Remember, admissions tutors through the personal statement want to make sure that you have the necessary skills to become a doctor, not that you've just had 20 opportunities. So it's important to show them that 1, you have the skill to reflect, and 2, what skills you've actually gained from these experiences. So talking about how you've learned discipline and teamwork by playing in an orchestra, leadership by being head boy or head girl, communication and empathy through a work experience opportunity is a much better use of characters than listing out the 5 different hospitals that you've worked in, the 5 different debate competitions that you've attended, and so on. Moreover, your personal statement would look so much better if you learned a lot from one experience than if you learned nothing from 10 experiences. So remember, quality and genuine reflections over quantity and a list of your experiences.
Getting the tone right for your personal statement is a uniquely difficult experience. On one hand, you want to come across as real and with an authentic personality, but on the other hand, you want to seem like a professional doctor of the future. And this is made even harder by the fact that you have hardly any characters to play with, so you're probably going to need to cut down your language into a way which makes it sound a little bit less natural. So how do we get around this dilemma? Well, most importantly, you need to try and seem as if you're enthusiastic about your subject. And it's not enough to just say this. You also need to be able to back it up using your past experiences, reading, and anything else that shows that you are curious towards medicine. At the same time, you can come across as professional by avoiding negative language and slang, or anything else that makes it seem like you're chatting to a friend more than you are submitting a personal statement. So in summary, what you need to be writing is a fairly professional piece that actually shows off your interest and your personality through your experiences and the way that you describe it. It's also important to not try and sound overly professional. So there's no need to be using overly specific medical terms to show off your knowledge in this way. That might come across in your interviews better than your personal statement.
Another really important tip to remember while writing your personal statement is that you are a whole person. You're not just someone who studies all the time, and you're also not just someone who plays all the time. Admissions tutors are looking for well-rounded and holistic individuals because medicine is a vocation that requires a high academic ability, but also really important transferable skills, including good communication, teamwork, leadership, and empathy. And these are skills that cannot just be learned sitting in a classroom behind a textbook. So talk about all of the experiences you've had outside of the classroom. Talk about sports that you play, clubs that you are a part of? What do you like to do for fun? Do you have a part-time job? Even if it's something as simple as working as a cashier or a waiter, these jobs teach you important interpersonal skills that are required in doctors. So regardless of what your experience is, even if it's not very academic, it might be useful to add it to your personal statement because medicine is such a well-rounded vocation. Also, with more talks of doctors getting burnt out, having a life outside of medicine has become increasingly important. Admissions tutors are looking for someone who will be a good medical student, a good doctor, and someone who is likely to stay in the profession for a long time. So they want to ensure that you're not going to get burnt out. And the only way to ensure that is to see if you have a life outside of medicine, if you have a well-rounded life, and to show admissions tutors what you do when you're stressed out or when you're burnt out. How do you prevent that? And a very good way to show that is all of the activities that you do outside of just studying. So remember that you're a whole person, and that's exactly what admissions tutors are looking for.
So here are just a few red flags not to include in your personal statement. First one is obviously don't repeat yourself. You have 4,000 characters, you need to save space. So the way I would combat this is sort of listening out your experiences and making sure each experience has its own individual point, so you're not repeating yourself. You only have 4,000 characters, so just remember that. As well as if you want to save characters as well, you can do things like you don't have to write the full name of your hospital, you don't have to write the full name of the doctor that you're shadowing, because these are just a waste of characters, because at the end of the day, the admissions tutor just wants to see your experience and what you've taken away from it. Another thing not to do is not to complain. So it's really easy to criticize and point out the failures of healthcare professionals. But if you would like to include that, it's really important that you come up with some solutions to combat that in the future. It shows that you have sort of a realistic knowledge of patient needs and, you know, sharing potential solutions. And it's also really important not to offend anyone, since your application will be reviewed by doctors and admissions tutors who are in the healthcare field. So you don't want to insult those who you're trying to seek acceptance from, in a way.
We hope you enjoyed the video and now know how to put your best foot forward with the personal statement. Once again, hit that subscribe button and check out some of the other great content on the channel. If you'd like to find out more, head over to the Aspiring Medics website. Thanks, and see you in the next one.